listening to Around Comics.
From Chicago, this is Around Comics, the comic culture podcast where we talk about everything in and around the world of comics and comics culture. I'm your host, Mr. Christopher Niesman, and I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Mr. Brian Salazar. How you doing, bud?
Hello. What is going on? This is more podcasting than we've done in like 5 years in a week.
Yes, that is a true statement. I'm not even sick of you yet. My wife Marta today. Nah, she's not going to get on camera. She's like, no. She was like, "You're doing it again? Again? This is like 3 times this week." But that's okay. I'm glad. It's a great way to kind of get through all this craziness. And the really nice thing is that we've been able to hook up with some really good friends, including one of our oldest and nearest and dearest friends, just period, but also friends of the show. I think one of the first guests that we got, certainly the first creator that ever gave us feedback way back whenever we first started. Our wonderful friend, writer, artist, Renaissance man. He is a haberdasher to the stars, right, Sal? Are you ready?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes. In honor of that,
nice.
We had to get ready.
Damn it! I got this stupid headset on. What a bad choice on my part.
It's our good friend, Mr. Ande Parks. Andy, how you doing?
Hello, gentlemen. I'm good.
Yeah?
Thanks for having me.
This is one of my favors.
What is that thing?
It's a Churchill.
Nice.
Gray felt 7 1/4. I think you told me one time that if your head was 7 1/4, oh, the hats you would own.
Yeah, that would be trouble.
I'm going back to the Bucks hat, but that was our little tribute to one of the best hat men.
What is it? Is that cotton or felt you had on there, Sal?
I don't know.
Is that a Target hat or a real hat? That's what I'm asking.
It's a real hat. It's a Stetson.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Good. That's felt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my one, real hat. I'm not much of a hat guy. I got this beautiful coif.
Right. Well, you don't want to cover that up.
Yeah.
No.
Crime against nature.
Whenever you're like Andy and I, those hats are a defense mechanism to keep the wind off you.
And there's no ozone. You can't be out in this bare air anymore.
No, you'll burn. Mr. Parks, how are you doing, man? How's life in isolation going for you? Even though we talked, we had Tony Moore on earlier this week, and it came up again that all of the comic book creators that we know, like, this is just like another day for them. They're used to having to, work in their basement or whatever, and are, actually kind of have gotten so used and prefer working from home and all of that good stuff.
That's true, but I'm used to having an empty house 9 months out of the year. So it's a little different. It's easy to get distracted when right now there's 2 other people in the house because my daughter is off at college. She didn't come home because she works in the housing department there, so she's there. But still, there's people here all the time. And, I every now and then I'm like, son of a, I guess they can't go out in the yard for a while. So this is reality, but work, it's the same. I have a gig right now, but it's kind of slowed down, but although I'm told it's still live. So I've been working on that a little bit, and I've been trying to get ready, making my Patreon more viable so that I can, start counting the greenbacks when Extraction hits the air here later this month.
Very excited, and we'll. I guess we can probably just jump right into that. You have some kind of exciting things going on. This has been brewing for how long? When did you start work? This is originally a graphic novel that you did called Ciudad, right?
Right. And I think I did the math the other day. I believe I went to LA to talk to the Russo brothers about the plot and the structure 12 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
From
So
there,
they weren't even like a glimmer in the Avengers' eye at that point,
no,
right?
they had directed a couple features. They did this, the thing that broke them in was Welcome to Collinwood. And that's a cool little small crime thing. It does have George Clooney in it, so it's not that small, but, and then they did You, Me, and Dupree, which I think they had mixed feelings about. But when I met them, they were working in TV and they were trying to get back into features, and they had this idea for this crime story set in a real place in South America. They went to Oni, and Oni came to me, and so we hooked up. And the idea was we'd bash it out together and then create a graphic novel, and then they would go on and create a screenplay and kind of develop it at the same time. So, yeah, it was 12 years ago that Paramount optioned it and then flew me to LA so I could get in a room with the Russo brothers and kind of bash out the main story points for a couple of days. Then it took, I don't know, a year or so for me to write it, maybe less. Then it took a long time. We couldn't find an artist, and maybe 4 years until it was actually published, maybe 5. And then after that, just years of it's about to be made, and then it's not going to be made, and then it's about to be made again, and then it's not going to be made. And then somebody else wants it, but Paramount won't give it up, and then it just on and on and on. But that's Hollywood. I mean, this is what happens. It gets optioned, and 12 years later, if you're very, very lucky, something hits the air.
Sure. Which, speaking of hitting the air, this is going to be Netflix original, and it premieres. What's the premiere date on it?
April 24th.
April 24th, and they got some kind of no-name guy for the lead. Yeah, he's been in a couple things.
Some muscle-bound guy.
Yeah, couldn't even get an American for this. No. Get an Australian.
Right. They got Mr. Thor, Chris Hemsworth, and he's when I first saw pictures of him, he looked a little leaner to me, but in the trailer he still looks pretty damn buff. So yeah, he's still Chris.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Have you seen it yet?
I have not. I read the screenplay long ago.
Thor fan.
I think when I read the screenplay, it was so long ago that it was still set in South America. So after that, I was like, I'll just wait and see it. It doesn't. I don't need to read it and just get my hopes up and all that. So I'll be surprised about a lot of things, like you guys will be.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
What?
Hi, Sal.
So
Sal's producing.
He looks he's like very intense there, staring at something.
I have like 3 different screens going at the same time. I'm trying to make sure that everything is. We've done like 2 of these live streams, and I've fucked up both of them at this point. So I'm really hoping
that doesn't sound like you.
No, I'm really hoping this one works out better. But yeah, forgive me if I'm not 100% engaged in what was going on.
No problem
with the show. But this has got to be pretty awesome. I mean, to have something that you wrote and developed with these guys now, and especially they went on obviously with huge success with the Avengers.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
the original plan was that they would direct this. It would be their. Here we are back making features, and of course now they're way too big to direct this, so they produced it. They wrote it long ago.
Who is directing it?
A guy named Sam Hargrave, who started his career in Hollywood, I believe, on the first Captain America movie they made, which was... Did they make the second one?
Yeah, I believe so. Winter
Soldier. So he was Chris's stunt double, I believe, on that movie.
Oh,
really?
And then he went on to be like a stunt director, and then they started giving him directing bits. I think he helped out in the action sequences on Atomic Blonde.
Oh, cool!
And
I think
that's
another comic movie.
Yeah, right. Well, these are kind of connected because they all sprung out of, in one way or another, Oni Press's Hollywood division, which had both of these properties at one point or another. And then they liked what he did on Atomic Blonde enough that they said, I think you're ready for a feature. So he made this thing.
I think that's the second director. I can't remember the other. Just this week, I was reading a story about another director of an action movie. Oh, what was it? But he was a stuntman. He was somebody's stuntman, and then eventually went on to. That's kind of cool, considering you'd think a lot of those guys. The only thing I know about stuntmen is from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, right.
I was waiting for it.
You guys are too young to have seen the Burt Reynolds movie back in the day.
Oh, no.
What's it called?
Hooper.
Hooper? Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was it. Yeah, I love that movie. With
So Andy, you're a big film buff like us, and we've been waxing poetic about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a couple times on the show.
Yeah.
Just can't talk about it enough. And I'm just going to assume that you love it as much as we did.
I do, and it's a little surprising in my case because he usually makes me mad. I really disliked the Hateful Eight.
Really?
I like like 80% of Inglourious Bastards, and then 20% of it, he feels like he's waving his dick in my face. I want him to just stop showing off and make a film. And he stayed out of his own way, I thought, completely through Once Upon a Time. I really loved it.
Yeah. We both adore that. Even though one that you've talked about that you really enjoy, which I have not seen yet. It's been on the list. Is 1917. It's probably
I just saw it a second time. It was a really strong year, man. Parasite, Little Women, 1917, Once Upon a Time. Shit, The Irishman is like at the bottom of that list, and The Irishman is damn good.
Yeah, I love Knives Out. I thought.
I
awesome.
like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it was one that the wife and I absolutely loved seeing at the movie theater. So if you're a Agatha Christie fan, it felt very Christie-esque to
that
us.
Guy. I guess this is semi-scandalous to say in comic book or in nerd circles, but I think that guy makes all good movies. You're supposed to be outraged by a Star Wars movie, right? I guess.
Oh, that's right.
I was not. I liked
it. Yeah.
I can't say I'm a fan, but actually that's not true. I like his other movies. His Star Wars movie was trash, but
I've just decided I'm gonna watch Clone Wars and Rebels. That's all the Star Wars I need right now.
I thought they really did him an injustice because he is a great director, and they should have given him like a standalone Star Wars, world to work with.
Yeah, that probably would have been more fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little odd though, apparently, because I guess nobody liked Solo, and I thought it was really good.
I thought Solo was great.
Yeah,
I liked it too.
I liked Solo. I liked Rogue One. I liked all of the standalones more than the last trilogy, which was fine. It's
okay. JJ never makes me feel anything. I don't know why. Even back to the new Star Trek movies, like they blew up Spock's planet in the first one, and I was like, okay.
That's a bummer. Have you watched any of the new Star Trek stuff on the CBS All Access?
Yeah, so I finished season 1 of Discovery. I liked it quite a bit, and then I somehow got bogged down in season 2. I don't know why. And then the wife and I just watched our first Picard, and we really dug that. So that'll be cool to watch. I'm excited to get to all the, I don't know if you call them cameos, but all the old people showing up. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I've got about 4 episodes of Picard left, but the second season of Discovery I liked as well as the first season. So cool. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, we talked to Tony about this on Tuesday. That what a neat time it is that there's so many streaming and online options that you can't keep up with all of it.
Right.
I mean, you really can't. And there's something out there for everyone. And probably the biggest problem with it is that there's so much good TV and original movies that are out there that there's not enough hours in the day.
Right.
Even now.
Right. Yeah. Right. You would think it would be a great time to have a movie hitting Netflix, and probably more people are going to see it, but it doesn't. So this is complicated. I hope people don't mind hearing about my finances. It may be boring as hell. I already got paid what I'm going to get paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like if 100, it doesn't help me out if more people see it than would have before. The drag of it is that the way that I could have generated some extra interest and revenue out of this is going to cons and selling prints and selling books, and no, I can't. I can't do that. So that's kind of a drag.
Yeah.
I am going to set up. I'm doing a Hemsworth print now from the movie, and I do have some copies of the book. So on my website, when it comes out, I will be able to sell prints and books a little bit at least. But it's a drag not to be able to get out and meet people in person who've seen it, and so it goes.
Yeah, I mean, we've run into you at multiple conventions, and I mean, this is convention season right now, and it's just wiped out. It's C2E2 is lucky to have happened when it did.
It is,
and I
really,
and I even heard from folks that were there that they were already kind of starting to freak out a little bit, and I don't know if it really affected attendance that much. It probably had to at that point, because I think it was a week or two later we're canceling the NBA and baseball.
It was in the air, pun not intended, enough that I remember their creators saying they wouldn't be signing or shaking or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So at least it was out there kind of in people's minds already. It seems crazy that at one point we were like a week before Planet Comic-Con, we were all like, is it going to happen or not? Now we're like, what? There was never any chance of that.
Oh yeah. It's our Kerwin season wrapped up abruptly, and I had one end of late season tournament Bonspiel at the end of April. I was like, oh, this might be cleared up by the end of April. And I was like, what was I even thinking? It's like not even close. So that's
I tell you, I have spent some real time being thankful that my Chiefs got their rings. Because that would have been, after 50 years of waiting, can't play Super Bowl, sorry guys, would have been just really, really unfair.
These people right here are not happy. Bucks fans are. It's not that the team was going to break up, but Milwaukee was starting. I've been lucky enough to have moved and lived in several different cities that have had championship teams while I lived there, and there's a feeling that you start to get as the season goes on, where it's like, they're good, and then it's like, oh, they're really good, and then they can do this, and then this is ours. And Milwaukee was starting to have that feeling of it's like, this is the team, this is the year. There's no one else that is comparable to this team, and people are bummed right now.
It's a drag.
Yeah.
So,
but yes, congratulations on your Chiefs.
Thank you.
Yes. I was thinking about that. Obviously, you're the biggest Chiefs fan I think I know. And I was wondering how much additional joy you got out of the fact that the Bears didn't draft Patrick Mahomes and look like complete assholes.
Not only did they not draft him, they traded up to not draft him.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Thanks.
And my heart breaks because I've been there. I mean, we drafted Todd Blackledge. All that stuff. So, and I have a lot of Bears fans friends. I feel for them. I'm glad they didn't get the guy though. I'm glad we got him, but it's heartbreaking. Did you guys see the social media meme today about Trubisky?
No.
There was allegedly a sign in a store that said, look, in this store, you must stay 10 feet away from other people. If you don't know how far that is, picture a wide open receiver for the Bears, and now picture where Trubisky's going to throw the ball. That's 10 feet.
That's about right.
Yeah. Yeah, probably a little accurate or inaccurate as it would be. It's
And he's got skills. He just doesn't have Patrick's brain. He can't. Patrick is that guy who can read the 3 shifts in the defense and put it where he needs to go. That's a pretty rare thing.
Yeah, I know. And now I live behind the cheddar curtain, so I've got to deal with it with these Packer fans daily, man.
I kind of had to root for them, but now I'm off the hook. Mike McCarthy went to Baker here where we live and where my wife teaches, and he's been very generous, with donations. So now God, the thought of rooting for the Cowboys is really painful, but I guess I have to at least a little bit.
No, you don't. Yeah. So, Chiefs good. You got your Royals ring in the bag, and they're back to being the doormat of the AL Central now.
Yeah.
So, wife has returned to normal there, but
right. And this year we're like, could we maybe win more? Maybe not lose 100, maybe not break 500, but have a little more fun. So it's a drag. And what really hurts? One of the most fun players to watch in baseball, I think, our catcher, is last year lost his whole season to an injury, and now he's not getting to play either. It's a drag.
Yeah, Perez.
Yeah, Salvador.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's very good.
He's just a joy. He always got a smile. He's a great player. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, but hopefully we've got some baseball in front of us. I know Sal and I have talked about it. This is the year the White Sox. We're gonna make a move. This is the year, man.
I never agreed to that. I never. I said they're gonna hit the hell out of the ball, and they still don't have enough pitching.
Right.
Never.
So Sal, I'm staring at it. Not that I don't look at your beautiful face, but who drew that little Spider-Man head behind you?
Oh, that.
Oh, go get that. Go get that. It's awesome. It's more than a drawing.
Really?
It's a. I did this. This is an illustration that I did, and
oh crap! I remember seeing that. Oh, it's so cool. Yes.
But this one I had Stan sign. I was lucky.
Oh my God. That's so cool.
Where's the signature?
Yeah,
there it is. We got it.
Go back. No, other way. There you go.
It's under my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get Stan. He really liked it, and so that I don't have any more prints. I had made that and sold a bunch of them. People seem to really like that one. So that's the only one I got left.
Very cool. Where did you meet Stan?
It was kind of a fluke thing. I was set up at Wizard World. This was, I don't know, however many years ago. And he was there and, doing signings and everything. And I was like, I should get him to sign it. And I was selling a lot of these prints, but I was like, it's like $150 or something to get his signature. And I was just like, I don't know. So I'm like, who knows how long he's going to live? Not, right. Knowing, but he's in his 90s at that point, I think. So
yeah,
I go up to the booth to buy a ticket, and I'm standing in line, and I get to the front of the line, and there's a girl that's selling the tickets that I had known from the very first days of Around Comics, and she was working this ticket booth, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she was, really happy to see me and everything. And I was telling her, I was looking to get this signed by Stan. She's like, I've seen a bunch of these come through today. And then I told her I did.
Cool.
So she was, and so she's like, "Come on!" And she just comes from behind the table. She grabs my hand and she walks me to the front of the very long line. And she's like, "Stan, this is my friend Brian. I'd really like you to meet him, and he'd like you to sign this." And I was so. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in comics, and there's only been a couple that have ever made me starstruck. And, it was Stan, and I was standing there, and he's just like, "This is so nice. This is great. You should send this to Marvel." I remember it, he said that, and I don't even know if I said anything. I didn't get a picture of him. I just stood
Right.
there and was like shaking my head and just going, I can't believe he's holding something that I made
Right.
of Spider-Man.
You did it
And,
right. In your paralysis, you don't want to be a schnurrer. Take your free
Yeah.
autograph and move on.
Yeah.
Exactly. And but the downside was, like, the next year I was set up again, and my daughter was with me. And from all the Marvel movies, she became a very big Stan Lee fan. She never really read comics or anything, a little bit, but I've always taken her to conventions since she was really little. And she loved all the Marvel movies. We've always gone to the Marvel movies. And she became a Stan Lee fan. And she wanted to meet Stan. And I'm like, you don't, I'm like, I'm not going to pay $150 to go, I'm sitting here thinking she's like 14. And it doesn't really mean that much with her. Well, then he stopped going to conventions like that year because his health kind of got bad. And she never let me kind of forget
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So then when he died, I actually called her. She was at school, and I called her, and she actually cried. She was pretty upset when Stan passed. So he still had.
I guess I shook his hand once, but never really had a conversation. But my last memory of him was kind of sad. It was this horrible convention in Dallas. It was a New Year's Eve convention. The kind where, like, the promoter disappears on Sunday morning, so they have to pay anybody, and they declare bankruptcy and all this shit.
Oh, jeez.
But so I got to observe because I was maybe going to try to get Stan to sign something, and my handler, I have an agent who books me at cons every now and then, not very often, but she would book me for this one, and she got me a free Stan autograph so I could get something signed for my son. And that never happened because Stan's people got wind of what was coming, and they started. I just saw this poor old guy being pulled in and out from behind the curtain, wait, go out and sign that one because that ticket has already been paid, but now come back, don't sign that other one. And just watch him being kind of jerked around by people who were motivated by the cash that was being generated. It was kind of a sad last memory of him for me, but
similar. Similar. I think it was New York where I maybe met him, and Ron Richards was kind enough to kind of pull some strings to get Jason Wood and I to get into a back room to meet him, which was neat. But yeah, you definitely had that feeling of like his people around him, and they were there to get him from point A to point B and make as much dough as possible.
It's like throwing Sinatra out on this stage after he couldn't remember the lyrics, like, hey, Frank, we got to generate some more revenue here, man.
Well, now I feel really.
I mean,
it's. I said.
No, you were fine. I'm sure you were fine.
No, it was. I mean, it was like he was still Stan. He was still that guy. And
no, I think the thing I'm talking about was a couple years later, perhaps. And
yeah. It's weird.
No,
it's like
there was
some
always
people
those
actually
stories that
become
came
their own
out.
little industry. Yeah.
There was a lot of that stuff coming
because
out.
this friend of mine books me at shows every now and then. So, and I want to hang out with her after the con, so I end up hanging out with her friends who are the other, convention booker people. It's really an amazing little subculture. I feel there might be a less violent, Tiger King docu series in that world, because it's really quite a thing. Watching how these people kind of rotate around the celebrities they handle, and it's quite a little world. And then the jockeying that goes on, where these guys who in any other context would not be the center of attention, but they happen to have created a Comic-Con, 10 years ago that's become kind of a thing. And now they get all the love from all these handlers, and it's quite a world.
It's a weird subculture, and I've had conversations with you about the original art world, which is a subculture of the subculture. And I mean, that has changed. Even in, we started doing this back in 2006, and I was just kind of starting to buy some original art at the time. And even in that almost 15 years, it's amazing how much it's changed I'll talk to people like you, and I talked to Will Pfeiffer, who used to go to the old Wizard Chicago show, and he remembers the days when you could stroll into a Wizard show and buy a Kirby page for like $100,
Yeah.
or $200, and that was 20, 25 years ago, and that whole original art world it is price prohibitive for me. There's still pages that I'll get, and I think that you had been collecting for so long. You have some wonderful pieces that I was lucky enough to see in person.
Yeah, but I can't really buy stuff I love anymore. Even I used to be able to scoop up Frank Robbins dailies for $30 a pop. That's all gone. And then I thought, I found my inking hero. The guy I wanted to be was Dick Giordano. I could never be that good, but that's kind of who I modeled myself after. And he was so prolific in the 70s. He was inking everything. Every other cover DC put out had his inking on it. And I found there's been some pages of him with Irv Novick on Batman from that era. And I thought, cool, these are really nice, and I can get Giordano in his prime, and started bidding on some of those, and all of a sudden they were going for like $500. I'm like, what the hell's going on around here? Yeah. I was just bidding on. You remember for a while DC had half pages? There'd be an ad on the bottom half of the page. Yeah. There'd be a little thing. Story continued after the next page or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I put a $300 bid in on one of those Batman Irv Novick Dick Giordano pages. It was a half freaking page, and I didn't win. So, yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
the bright side, the stuff I own, some of it has gone through the roof. On the dark side, I really can't afford to buy any more.
Yeah, but it's probably my favorite. That there's two pages of yours. Do you mind if I mention what they are?
No, it's fine. I put stuff online often. It's not a secret.
Yeah, it's you have
just don't publish my address, afterwards.
Yes, yeah. You have a Jose Luis Garcia Lopez Aquaman character sheet
from the style guide.
From the style guides that he used to do. That is amazing. And you have a Mazzucchelli page from Born Again.
One of the most memorable pages, yeah. When people see that one, they go, "Oh shit, you have that one."
Yeah, I use it as
Chris. Tell him what Cap says on that page.
I'll use it as my profile pic on Facebook every once in a while, and it's I'm loyal to nothing but the flag is the dream. Yeah, it's quote it for me because I don't have it in front of me and I've had 3 beers.
Yeah, I'm loyal to nothing, General, except the dream.
Yes, except the dream.
And he's holding the freaking flag. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's
Sal, you don't have the powers to show this to people, do you?
I could probably find it. Yeah, let's see here.
I think it's on my Twitter feed. Oh, you know what? If you just Google, hold on. This is really riveting radio right now, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's awesome stuff. While you're doing that, I'll show you one of my prized pages that I was able to scoop up. Here's a wonderful.
Whoa! What is that? Is it Riso? Oh, it's Hester. Oh, look at that. Nice.
It's Hester
and me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Nightwing page, right?
Green Arrow.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought that was like the skull guy from Nightwing.
No, it's the Mr. Bones. Is that
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's the last page of issue 22 of Green Arrow.
Oh, cool. I like the design on that one. That's cool.
Yeah. As I bought it from Phil, and he's like, "Yeah, you just bought one of the pages that I really like that for some reason just didn't have a main character on it, so it just sat in his pile for a while."
So, Sal, I'm going to try putting my camera on this thing, but I don't know if it'll work.
Okay. Well, if you want, you could just send me the link and I can pull it up.
Oh,
If you,
okay.
you
All
can,
right.
In the Skype chat, you should be able to send me the link.
Oh, yeah? Okay, hold
Yeah.
on. Where does that happen?
That's a good question.
Oh,
Let's
in the
see.
text thingy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm accepting you.
I'm glad you're accepting of me, Andy. After
Yeah.
all these years.
Oh my God, that's quite a link I just sent. It's like a jillion characters.
That's
Did you get it?
I did. Let's see. Now, how do I?
And it's just that panel, and it's in color. It's from the comic, not from the original.
Now, Andy, I have an original art question that I've
Copy link.
asked a couple people their opinion, and this is, I mean, we're deep diving into OA nerd stuff here.
Right.
All right, so there was. Do you remember the Avengers Fantastic Four crossover annuals where they're fighting the Skrulls?
Yeah.
Okay, so John Byrne drew both of those. He was doing, I think he was doing FF and had either left Avengers or whatever, but he did both. And that, what was neat about those crossover annuals is that they actually did cross over. It was from the perspective of the Avengers and then from the perspective of the FF, and then they kind of meet at the halfway point.
Mm-hmm.
And there are identical pages in those annuals that are all drawn by Byrne, but they're inked by different people.
Oh, cool.
So here's one, and so I mean I love the character mix on this because it's got Mr. Fantastic and Cap and Hercules, She-Hulk and Black Knight, and it's there's Captain Marvel and Human Torch. So it's a neat page. Guess who inked this?
It looks rather organic and brushy. It's hard to tell in this resolution.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if I had to guess, I'd say Rubenstein or Breeding.
Kyle Baker.
Oh God! Oh my God! Yeah, I couldn't see. So I have a Silvestri page that he inked from that era, and it is shocking. Like he was really, I think he was bashing things out in comics, and then going to his advertising work job every day, and yeah, I think he learned under Giordano and some guys like that too. Maybe Klaus Janson.
So here's the question, and I forget, that is from I think this is from the Avengers. Yep, this is the Avengers annual 14. If anyone's keeping score at home, the same exact page is in the FF annual, but inked by somebody else, and I forget who was inking Byrne at that time for FF. I don't. Yeah, I forget. I should know. So my question is, are there two of those pages out there in the wild? And if so, which one would be the actual page? And how does that affect the value of this? The thing is, I can't see any. But actually, it does look like there's pencils there, but yeah, it's just. I don't think there's any way to really tell or be absolutely for sure that this is the original John Byrne page. So
probably, if you went to sell it, probably nobody would know either.
Yeah, it's just a weird.
I would in this era, it would be no big deal because inkers largely work from blue lines that they print out at home based on scans that they get anyway. You didn't have that technology at that time. Assuming they didn't ask him to pencil it twice, somebody probably got a stat and light boxed it. If yours looks like it's on official Marvel paper and everything, is there Marvel like logo up on the top and all that shit?
I mean, it's stamped. It says, the Avengers.
And it looks like it's got the official blue line ruled there for people to, I would guess that you have the one that Byrne penciled on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to know.
Well, good, because it wasn't cheap.
Right.
That's the most I've ever spent on a page.
Burn
I
stuff
traded
has
a
gone
Patrick
crazy.
Gleason. I traded a Patrick Gleason. I think it was an Ivan Rice double page spread, Green Lantern, double page spread, and another page that I can't even remember, and at like $100 for this thing. It was like, and this is probably almost 10 years ago, and it was almost a $700 page at the time. And I was like, yeah, I can't pay cash for that. My wife
You can't lose money on burn these days. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Are either of you guys nerdy enough to know the Art of John Byrne book very well? It came out. You might be a little too young for it too. Came out when I was in high school still, I think. And I knew every page of that thing. I knew it front and back. And a Superman sketch that Austin inked that was in that book, prominently featured, came up at auction last year. And I thought, well, I'm going all in. And I bid something crazy. I bid like $3,000, I think. Crazy for just a sketch. I think it went for over $7,000.
Jesus.
I was like, oh my God. Now that had the bonus that it was Byrne and Austin. If you get those two together, it's gold. Because that's what, people love the X-Men so much. But yeah, it's shocking.
I hear that about Hester Parks pages.
Yeah, you don't want anybody else but Parks. That guy. He's the defining guy on that. Sorry.
Can't hear you, Sal.
Sorry, I turned my volume down. That was the white cover of that, right? The Art of John Byrne. I'm showing one on
white cover and like a marker colored drawing of Raj 2000 coming into an alley.
Yeah.
And like Wolverine hunkering in fear and
Yeah, I do remember. I don't know if I ever owned it or not. I can't imagine that I didn't, but
God, I read mine so much I think the pages were coming loose. I just loved him so much. Even I read that journal article that came out around then, and you could tell he was a dick. And, it didn't matter to me. I still loved him. God, I loved him.
He was good to us.
Go ahead.
No, when we talked to him, like, that was another. It was him and Stan. Those were the two people that I've ever like freaked out about, and I was so terrified of Byrne being horrible. And he was cool. He was, at least in that instance,
he was the best. Yeah.
Well, here's what a nerd I am. I was once on your podcast the week after you had him on, and you guys told me that you had asked him something that I had said online, or had said, I don't know. I had said something about his work, and you guys mentioned that, hey, our friend Ande Parks said this about your work, and John said, oh, that's a really good point. And I was like, ooh! So he still holds that for me, even though I know he's kind of a weird, bitter old man.
We actually there was a second like geek out moment from that episode that the artist edition of his that came out, his X-Men, I think IDW put it out, the John Byrne Uncanny X-Men artist edition.
Right.
In the foreword of that book, he doesn't mention us, but he mentions that I was on a podcast and they asked me this question and blah blah blah, and it was
it's you.
It was the question. It was a question that we asked him about when he knew that the X-Men was the hit that it was as popular. And I think his answer was, sometime around the time that Paul Smith took over. But
I thought you were going to say, when did you know he was leaving the book? I thought you had asked him the famous Colossus question. You guys know that?
Colossus question,
so
no.
It's such a piddly little thing for two guys with massive egos to get pissed about. But there's a splash page of Colossus ripping a tree out of the ground. And Byrne drew it. And what he had in mind was Colossus smiling and, oh, what a joyous time it is to be out working in the field or something.
I remember that, yeah.
And he drew speed lines as if he's just pulling it out of the earth, no problem. And Claremont, of course, turned it into this flowery, by the gods you will come free, you blasted, turned it into a strain. Well, that's the kind of thing that happens all the time in collaborations. But Byrne said, as soon as I saw that, I knew it was over. Like, okay.
That was it.
That was it. When he came in and had cream cheese on his bagel, I knew it was over.
I think
that's funny.
Claremont wanted anything. Anytime he wrote Colossus, he was trying to be Tolstoy. He's just
right.
Everything that comes out of his mouth has to be the most Russian thing I can come up with.
For the
Chris,
Bolsheviks.
if we don't cover what we're drinking pretty soon, I'm going to be empty.
Oh,
okay. So let me grab mine. So Andy, what are you drinking this evening?
So I'm 3-fisting, but only 2 of them are alcoholic. So I'm 2-fisting in mine. This is a perfect old fashioned.
Nice.
With a Luxardo cherry. And one of those big ice cubes, I got one of those silicone ice cube mold thingies. And then, so that's my main cocktail. And for dessert...
So tell the people what makes a perfect old-fashioned.
Perfect Manhattan is... a typical Manhattan would be made with bourbon and sweet vermouth. A perfect has half sweet and half dry vermouth, so it's a little less sweet overall.
Okay.
And these days, it used to be like when I got turned on to Perfect Manhattans by a really fascinating guy who was like 93 when I met him. So he learned to drink these in Prohibition times, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he taught me how to drink Perfect Manhattans. Back in those days, if you order Perfect Manhattan, a lot of bartenders would go, well, I'll try. They didn't know what it meant. These days, because of cocktail culture and how big it's gotten, almost everybody knows how to do a Perfect Manhattan. And then
I think, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think I gave you a piece of advice about Manhattans a few years ago whenever you were asking about bourbons. And I said, absolutely use at least 100 proof bourbon because you need the higher proof to stand up to the vermouth.
Yep.
And I think that you agreed with me.
I do. And I think what I'm using now is 90. I think that's what I usually have on hand is like a bullet or something. Yep. And then this, you can criticize. So that's a pretty pure classic cocktail. This is some bullshit. This is that screwball peanut butter whiskey. And that's kind of my dessert sipping thing for the night.
Yeah, Marta brought some of that home. It is shockingly peanut butter.
It's amazing. It's like a liquid Nutter butter.
Yes, it's shockingly peanut butter and very much a dessert drink.
So it's 70, but it is 70 proof. It's not like it's, an aperitif.
Oh, it's got booze in it.
Yeah. So I'll sip a little of that. Oh, and then I have a Coke Zero, to quench the thirst.
So I thought it was befitting, and talking to one of our favorite people, and as we're trying to kind of weather through this craziness, this is my favorite Milwaukee beer, and you would think that the Milwaukee beer culture has a long history, and it does, but not from the craft brew side of things. It's kind of like St. Louis in that it's been dominated by mega brewers for so long, but the craft beer industry in Milwaukee is amazing now, and I'd say it's really kind of in its first real decade of really establishing itself. But this is from a brewery called Third Space, and this is Happy Place.
Oh, cool.
This is my, and it's a wonderful Midwest pale ale. It's not super duper hoppy. It's got a real nice Citra feel to it. So it's floral, a lot of citrus in it. So yeah, this is my Happy Place.
Do you remember that I'm a total beer idiot? I never learned to like beer, so I don't know any of these things. It sounds delightful.
I'm drinking this because on Tuesday, whenever we were talking with Tony, I think I had about 2.5 bottles of wine, and I'm not going to do that tonight.
Yeah, good. Sal, you got a beverage over there? What are you doing?
You froze up.
Oh
no.
Did I lose
Oh,
you
there
guys?
he is.
What the heck's going on here?
He looks very deep in thought. He's very pensive tonight.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
It's the producer's chair from doing this video stuff now.
You're
It's,
such a
there's
big
lot of pressure
timer,
on him.
Niesman. You just
Something
sit there,
happened
la
to
da
audio.
da da la. Sal has to do all the grunt work.
Yeah. That was one of the conditions for getting back together to do this. I was like, how little will I have to do?
Right.
Talk? Absolutely. Done.
So you're in Milwaukee now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you
love
know of John and Ruth Jordan?
What's going on here?
John, no.
John Jordan and his wife Ruth published Crime Spree magazine.
Oh, yeah. They did
So
they
you might have met
they
them in a
own-
Chicago con at some point or other.
did they own the crime bookstore? There was
I don't know that they ever owned a store. They put on some writers events in Milwaukee. I went to 3 of those, I believe.
Yeah, I actually
Murder and
drove
Mayhem
up from
event.
Chicago. Murder and Mayhem. Yeah, I drove up here. Clay Moore
Mhm.
was up here for one, and I remember driving up from Chicago to talk to Greg Rucka, who was
Oh,
at one.
cool. That must have
Yeah,
been the first
it
one
was-
because I missed the first one and then I went to the next several.
Yeah, and
They're just
and,
delightful people. And John's family owned this tool and die shop. That's why I wonder if you knew him because there was a brewery near, like right across the street almost. They own like a block, and the tool and die business has slowed down, but they still own this block that was the factory, and they live in part of it, and they live in what were the offices. So like the door to their bedroom has that great frosted glass on it, because it used to be some manager's office or something. They're just delightful people. Some of my favorite people.
Oh, that's awesome. I know that you make it back to Chicago every once in a while, but if you ever get back up to Milwaukee, you better let me know.
I'd like to. It's been too long. I think I did my last one of those events like almost 2 years ago. Oh, no, I know when it was. I was riding back on the train when Comey's bullshit bombshell about Hillary hit like 10 days before the election.
Yeah, but her emails. Yeah.
Yeah. So, God, that's been a long time.
That's probably three and a half years ago. So
But I love that Milwaukee, man. I went that trip. I went downtown. Well, not really downtown. It was the outskirts. The famous German joint in town. There's 2 of them, right?
yeah, it's oh gosh, now you're gonna we've eaten. I took my dad there. I always want to say Schneidwurst, and that's not what it is.
Right. And all I can think of is the one in Chicago, and it's not that one, obviously. So yeah, I'm blanking.
I will have it in just a second. Yeah, it's very Mater's.
Mater's. Yeah, I think that's the one
Yeah.
I went to. And
Yeah, it's very old school.
yeah, I had some drinks at the bar and talked to people. Everybody was delightful, and I had some
Mhm.
these totally "How early do you want to die?" Appetizers. They were like little Reuben sandwiches and a fried egg roll. Oh my god! Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus!
So you know that I can drink, and we all can. I thought I could drink until I moved to Wisconsin, and
Oh, those people don't mess around.
I was introduced to a saying here pretty much right off the bat, and that was, if you're gonna you can't day drink if you don't start early. and they fucking mean it.
Yeah.
They call them eye openers.
That's nice.
It's like, oh, you ready for an eye opener? I'm like, it's 7.
Yeah. I don't see your point.
They're like, oh yeah,
you're behind.
Yeah, you're
buddy.
right. Yeah, we should probably start with brandy, not vodka, then.
Yeah. I confess, I had a fuck it day about a week ago. It was about noon, and I just wasn't feeling it. And I said, you know what? I got stuff to make a great margarita in the kitchen. To hell with this day. I went and made a giant margarita, and I ate a bunch of chips and just vegged out and watched TV all day. It was fantastic.
That's back to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. one of my out of 100 favorite moments of that is whenever he's making a pitcher of margaritas
Yes.
and just running around with a fucking pitcher of margaritas, yelling at these
Doesn't he?
hippies.
Yeah, he's got it in his hand when he runs to the window. To you goddamn hippies.
Goddamn.
9
And
goddamn
he's
whiskey
talking
sours.
he's talking to the cops, and he's just like, "Yeah, I was making margaritas, and then everything went crazy."
Oh God. Yeah, I love
I can
that.
see you doing that in like a robe,
Yeah, right.
robe with a fedora.
Yeah.
Making,
I was really
making
scared for him.
margaritas.
I mean, he was out there screaming at those guys, and they had a gun in the front seat. I was like, no, not Leo. I saw it once in the theater,
brilliant.
and I was so impressed. And I remember the moment where I said, he's not going to piss me off in this one. When the narrator kicks in, and it's pretty early in the movie when the narrator tells you that's a fucking lie. He got his license taken away, And I thought in a movie a few years ago, Quentin would have done that narration, and I would have gotten mad.
But it's Kurt
And
Russell.
He
right?
didn't do it. He hired Kurt Russell to do a professional job. I was like, oh shit, we might be in for something now.
Yeah. It's a special movie. It's-
Yeah, I
The
feel
moment
like
that really
dedicated.
pisses me off, I told you the Hateful Eight makes me mad. So, no, the one that really makes me mad is Django, which I thought was an okay, it was pretty good. And I love Christoph. Whenever Christoph's on screen, I'm happy. Late in the movie, they're being taken away by these Australians. Do you remember this?
yes.
And my Hollywood daddy shows up, Michael Parks, and he's acting his ass off. And look who's there sharing the scene with Michael Parks and ruining the whole fucking moment. Quentin acting and doing a horrible Australian accent. And I was like, you son of a bitch. Just direct the goddamn thing, will you? Jesus.
I don't know. I'll take it. I
I-
don't care.
I could do it.
He can put himself in as many movies as he wants, as long as he keeps making movies. I don't.
You like them all?
How many does he have left? He's got what, 2 left? So you say he's going to do 10? I think is that
Yeah,
it?
even that sets me off when he says the 9th film by I get mad. John Huston didn't do that. So knock it off.
John Huston was drunk. Too drunk to do that. He couldn't count to 9.
He meant to. He kept screwing up the numbers.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I like all of his movies. I don't love all of his movies.
Yeah.
But I'll take a Tarantino movie over pretty much anything else that comes out that same year. To me,
Well, it's true. I told you I hated Hateful Eight. I saw the goddamn thing 3 times to be sure how much I hated it because it's interesting.
That's a lot of hate, Andy. That's
Right.
a lot of hate.
He's not boring.
It
I give him
remind-
that. He makes you think.
It reminds me. A few years ago there was a Wilco record that came out, and I'm listening to this record, and I go and I go to talk to Marta about it, and Marta's has long been a more well informed music fan than I am. She was like the director of her college radio station, and she's got a great ear, and just it's a very good music fan. And I start trying to get into this deep conversation about this new Wilco record, and she's like, "That's what pisses me off about that fucking band and its fucking fans. Just listen to the goddamn record, and if you like it, great. If you don't, fucking don't listen to it anymore." And I was just like, "You are wise, woman. You are
That's
wise." And I feel, I feel that the same way about film fans and Tarantino is that they can't just like it or not like it. They've got to dissect it, and it's. Yeah, there are some creators that are Grant Morrison comic books. It's kind of that it all.
I hate
people gravitate.
I hate
to
Grant
that.
Morrison fans for sure. They're my least favorite comic book fans.
Well,
Not to get
it's
off on
like-
too
it's
big
like-
a tangent, but Wilco is the big, weak spot in my whole indie rock credentials. I should like them. Paul Westerberg's my favorite. I love REM. And I don't know. Wilco just bores me. I don't know. I never got it.
It's AM is a fun little record.
Why did you do this?
Yeah.
And
Why did you do this, Andy? He's going to go off on a goddamn
God,
20-minute
I'm sorry.
diatribe
Yeah.
on Wilco
Okay,
now.
quick story.
Where's Marta?
Quick story.
Where's
Quick
Marta
story.
to stop him?
So Uncle Tupelo, my favorite band of all time.
I'm gonna
breaks
go
up.
get a
I
drink.
actually have a calendar. I'll start ripping off pages.
Uncle Tupelo breaks up, and Jay Farr goes off, starts Sunvolt, but Tweedy had left with a couple, some of the crew from Tupelo. They do AM. AM comes out before Trace, which was the first Sunvolt record, and there's a story that Wilco is on the early leg of their tour, and Sunvolt's record comes out, and they stop at probably like a Tower Records or something, and pick it up, and they're listening to it in the tour van, and AM is a fun little alt country record.
Yeah.
Trace is, I think, an important record.
Mm-hmm.
It's weighty. It has a lot of weight to it, and so they listen to this, and Tweedy is completely silent the entire time that they're listening to it, and it gets the last track finishes, and he just kind of looks up and looks at the band, and he's like, "We have a lot of work to do." Is all he said, and then then their second record being there, they went from being kind of like a fun little alt country, almost not joke band, but fun poppy, alt country, to being there was like this big double album with a lot of
Is he still going?
production to it. Yeah. So anyway, I'm more of a Jay guy than a Jeff guy. I'll just put it that way.
Okay. Yeah.
The fuck does that mean? I don't know anything. I don't know anything about Wilco. I've never.
It's like a Lennon McCartney thing. But
Right.
Speaking of REM, I was listening to the radio today, and "Try Not to Breathe" came on.
Oh
and I was
God,
just like,
it's so beautiful.
is that the last great REM song? Like the last great REM song?
Maybe. I love. There's a song called Supernatural. What's it called? Supernatural, Super Serious, on one of their last albums. But yeah, that Automatic is my favorite record, and when that song comes on, it just rips your heart out.
It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was like,
you know what? I mean, that song
that
is kind of about a plague, right? I think it's
Mm-hmm.
you can interpret it any way you want. I think it's about a person dying of HIV complications.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I haven't heard it in our new context. It might really devastate me right now.
It hit me hard, but it just dawned on me. It's like, my God, that might be the last great REM song.
Yeah.
Like that, that sneaks its way into my top 10 favorite REM songs.
Yeah. So Tony Moore brought me up. I want to hear about this.
Oh, we were talking
not
about,
to make it all about me again.
No, it was funny. We were talking about what the time writing versus producing visually, and there was when Tony was working on Exterminators, which I think you backed him up on inking some of those, and Tony, way back when he's working on it, and we had he and Simon Oliver, the writer, on the show at the same time, and Tony was just like, Simon, stop writing the words "tidal wave of bugs."
Right. Yeah, I own one of those pages. It's an incredible wave of. It's a 3/4 splash, I think, of roaches. And man, I mean, you've seen my work with Phil. I like stuff to be bold and graphic, and
you spot a lot of blacks. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tony wasn't having it, man. He drew those fucking roaches, and he drew them, and then he drew them some more. It was exhausting, and it's just the mental, just staying engaged for that, just.
How many of those issues did you ink?
Maybe 4, maybe something like that.
Okay.
But I think what he had said about you specifically was also and I'm having a hard time remembering the exact context because I drank so goddamn much. But
He said you had incredibly soft hands.
no, he said that you were known as an inker, but you could outdraw most writer, or I mean, you could
that's
outdraw
nice.
most
Yeah.
artists. So yeah, it was very.
It's not
complimentary.
true, but that's very nice. Here's
Yeah,
a,
well,
I can draw a
we were
little
talk-
bit, but I don't draw in a way that I think comics should be made. When I draw, it looks labored and it takes me a long time, and to me, that's just not good comics. So I'm happy as an inker, and then at one point I had to decide, okay, inking isn't everything I want to do in life. What do I want to do in addition to? And at that point, I decided I think I'd rather be a writer. I've always had writing in my head. I was probably always a more natural writer than I was an artist, but I didn't know how to make a living as a writer, so I went into art because that seemed easier. So when at one point I had to make that decision. Am I going to try to become a penciler or an all-around artist, or am I going to become a writer? And I took the writing path because I'm lazy for the most part.
Sure. Are you writing or inking more these days, or a little bit of both? Does it go back and forth?
Well, it's been a weird time. I have been particularly lazy the last. By the way, saying particularly is a good way to tell how drunk you are.
Litmus test.
So it was kind of I don't want to get too personal, but my wife lost both her parents in the last year and change. With her mom passing in February, early March, something like that. And so there's been a lot. My daughter had some drama. So there was this whole holiday up to February where I hardly did anything. And now I got this job inking a book at Dark Horse. And then this whole thing, I was like, here I go, back to the daily grind. And then the world kind of screw that up. So what I should be doing is writing every day. And I have to confess, I have not had the focus for that lately. So I've been doing some prints, some paintings. I like doing watercolors where I don't know if you've seen my Star Wars pieces I did. I do a watercolor and then I ink over it. So it looks like a watercolor, but it's still got my inking on top of it. I like doing those. What I'm going to launch here, I wanted to have my Patreon be kind of a thriving thing by the time the movie comes out. So I've been putting more artwork up on it, and so there'll be a tier where you can. I didn't mean to turn this into an infomercial. Forgive me.
No, that's why we had you on, man. We want to know what's going on.
There'll be a tier where you can sign up for $5 a month and get access to a lot of high-res scans of my Star Wars paintings, or there'll be some pencil and inks things, or prints, various things like that. And then there'll also be a writing side you can get for $5 a month, where I'll post essays, I'll post a piece of original art from my collection and tell you why I think it's special and why it works. Today I posted an article about the credits for the graphic novel Ciudad and how nobody gets it right when they mention the movie. They don't really understand that I wrote the graphic novel, but it was, it's complicated. And then I'm also going to write a kind of as-you-go daily novella based on characters I created in a novel that was unpublished a few years ago. So it'll be a period thing set in Kansas City in late 30s called Hightower, after the lead character Estes Hightower, who is this very large Native American gentleman who kind of works for a crime boss in Kansas City and kind of as muscle. And so it's about Estes Hightower and him doing awful shit in Kansas City while still being a good man and trying to cling to his own little set of ethics. So the goal is to kind of have that ongoing at the Patreon as well, so that every day if you log in, you'll see another few hundred words of that thing going on. So I'll kind of develop it live as it goes.
That's very cool.
I hope so. It's a little nerve-wracking. Yeah. I'm not usually kind of that seat of my pants kind of writer, but I'm going to give it a shot.
That's cool. And I've always enjoyed your love of Kansas City. There should be like a very like high tier Patreon level of the Ande Parks personal tour of Kansas
Right.
City. Because
We
you
did that,
you
right?
did
Did I
that.
take you to Union
Yeah.
Station and all that stuff? Nice.
Took me Union Station took me to the War Memorial.
Yeah, Liberty Memorial. Yeah.
We went to the Negro League and
Oh,
Jazz.
cool. Yeah.
We went and had barbecue at the time one of your favorite places, which is not one of your favorite places.
It's sad.
now.
It's kind of fallen off. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Original
yeah,
Arthur Bryant's. Oh, and then I drove
Yeah.
you up to see the site of the original ball field there.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I got the Ande Parks tour of Kansas City, and that was like 2 fantastic, amazing days.
Oh,
It's,
good. I really enjoyed
yeah.
doing that. I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite memories. It was can't yeah, I'd go on and on about how hospitable you were for that.
Nice.
So,
Good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Is that fantasy football league still going?
No, so were you in the one that I ran?
Yeah.
No, I couldn't take commissioner anymore. These people are a big pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit that, and now I'm in one that Dan Jurgens run, and he can have all the headache.
There you go. Oh, speaking of Jurgens, shit, I think I've got it around here somewhere.
Well, I was going to tell you, Andy. So my daughter had to do a book report on In Cold Blood
Oh, cool.
this year, so I gave her as a supplement. I gave her your graphic novel.
Nice.
Yeah, Capote in Kansas. She enjoyed
Excellent.
it. Yeah.
She did not find it sacrilegious as somebody who had read both.
No, well, she didn't say
Good.
that to me, so no, I don't believe
Right.
so. Why, have you gotten that a lot from people?
There are a handful of people who just the idea of Truman talking to a ghost, they find that ridiculous, and I don't. I think if I wrote the graphic novel well, you can view Nancy Clutter as a ghost, or you can view her as a tool of Truman's process.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope it works either way, but it doesn't work that way for everybody. So it
Eh.
goes. I had a weird adventure this summer. It's kind of a long story. Forgive me. About a year and a half ago, I got an email from a guy I didn't know with a big attachment, and that's always a little scary. So, like a 10 meg attachment, I'm like, what the hell?
You're
is
just
this?
talking file size, not an actual
Yes.
attachment.
Yes. And so I start reading this email, and this guy says, Andy, I read your book, Capote in Kansas, like several years ago, and it really moved me. And I've been fantasizing about the idea of making an opera out of it. And I'm writing to see if you might be interested in granting your permission for that. And I'm attaching a finished aria sung by a friend of mine.
Wow.
And so one minute I've never heard of this guy, and the next minute I'm hitting play and hearing this woman sing as Nancy Clutter an aria from this proposed opera. So that was a crazy day, and we worked out the contracts, and I told him, possibly foolishly, come out to Kansas. If you ever come out to Kansas, I'll take you out there. Well, sure enough, here he comes. He's a New York guy. And last summer he shows up and says, all right, let's go. And so I drove my buddy Bill out to those parts of the world, and we met people. We went to church services where the Clutters attended. We met people who knew them. We did stuff that I never had the balls to do on my own before. I couldn't face it. But Bill had enough confidence, and to his credit, we walked into we went to 3 church services that day. That's 3 more than I had been to in a long time. And the middle one was the founder's service. So this is a back room in the church where the old people go.
Mm-hmm.
And we go in there, and I'm like, we're just going to fly under the radar, right? And the pastor says, so why are you gentlemen here? And Bill stands up and tells him, I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, my God.
Wrong audience.
You can't show up here and tell them you want to know about the Clutters. We're gonna have to leave town. And you know what he said? He said, "We want Nancy Clutter to be remembered for more than the way she died." And after that, we were golden. And the people were very welcoming. Everybody was really charming. So yeah, it was quite an experience. And I had not been to those places for a long time. And it's moving all over again. And it's moving, kind of just seeing how these people in this town have had to deal with the aftermath. Assholes like me showing up. And when we were there, there was an anniversary looming. Let's see, 59 to 19. What is that? 60 years?
Yeah.
That was looming, and they hate the anniversaries because reporters from, show up and say, "What are you?" And it's just annoying. But yeah, it was a good experience. Bill, God bless him, he did a really good job introducing me to everybody and kind of getting us accepted. So he's off now working on this opera, and it was going to be workshopped this summer. That may go away now that we can't see other humans for a while. But
yeah,
he's putting finishing touches on it. It's pretty cool.
It's really interesting. I never thought of that. I mean, when you said opera, I don't know anything about opera, but I could imagine it as a play for sure.
Right.
This
is a shorter piece, and I didn't even realize this. I don't know opera at all. A lot of operas are short, and he said this. So this will be like a 40-minute piece, just Truman and Nancy sitting in a room singing. And he said a lot of times when you go to see an opera, or especially when they perform them at colleges, it's actually two short pieces. It's like 40 minutes with an intermission in between. It's pretty common. So I don't know. I just want to see it performed live once. That's all I want out of the whole deal.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I wonder, going back to the town, and I wonder with the sort of explosion of true crime podcasts and the interest in true crime, if it's just gotten worse, or if people don't really look at that. Because that was the first true crime book, right? Like he created that.
It was the big one.
It created the genre.
Yeah.
Right.
So I wonder how that's, I would imagine, because it just seems like true crime has become so huge over, in the last few years, especially, that I can imagine they're getting even more, inundated with fans and seekers, that kind of thing.
We were told, so there are two towns there. There's Garden City, which is kind of the big town. And then there's Holcomb, which was a smaller, thriving town when the Clutters were alive, and now is very small and struggling little town. We were told, don't go into the only restaurant in Holcomb, which is now a Mexican joint, because there are a lot of immigrants there. That's the only reason that part of Kansas isn't shrinking, is that there are Mexicans coming up to look for work in like meat packing and stuff. So there's a Mexican restaurant there, and we were told don't go in there and mention the Clutters, because that wouldn't go well. So I think you have to be careful where you tread, And Holcomb did a really neat thing. There's a city park in Holcomb, and there's a big plaque and a little memorial for the Clutters. And the plaque mentions all the amazing community involvement that they did. And just at the end mentions that they were killed in their homes, and that's it. And it feels, when you're standing there looking at that plaque, it feels like Holcomb taking them back from all that. Say, look, we know about Inkle Blood, we get it. But these were our people, and they had lives here, and we're not interested in that part,
Have either of you watched Don't Fuck with Cats on Netflix?
No, I started hearing about it.
I watched like the first minute and a half. I'm just like, I don't know if I can watch this.
No, it's really hard to watch. It's just a brief overview of it, and then I'll get to why I brought it up. But it's a documentary. It's a 3-part documentary on Netflix, and it's basically about this group of internet people that they see this video of a guy murdering 2 kittens.
Oh.
A guy puts it online of him killing these 2 kittens. And
God.
Obviously sparks outrage. These people get all very pissed off, and they start trying to figure out who this guy is and using like
Yeah.
Google Maps and all this, anything they can do online. And they're not professional investigators. They're just people who were pissed off about it. And they started this like Facebook group and they started to try and track this guy down. And the story gets really interesting and very, very dark. And there's parts of it that are really hard to watch. They don't ever show the actually video of him doing anything, but they get to the point almost. And there's parts that are really hard to watch, but it's a really interesting kind of documentary. But
is this a multi-part thing?
It's 3 parts. Yeah, it's like 3 hours. And the reason I brought it up was in it someone does get killed. There is a murder at one point. Yeah, and I thought the filmmakers did a really excellent job at the end of it. Like the last 10-15 minutes of the film are about the guy who was killed. Right. Because and one of his friends even talks about it, is like, everybody's going to talk about this and nobody's going to talk about my friend. All they're going to say about him is he was killed. And that is really there's so much interest in all these crimes and things, weird and bizarre things that happen, and rarely does anyone ever mention the victims other than they were killed or how they were killed.
And there's a new tragedy of our times where there's going to be a lot of people die in the next month or 2 or whoever knows. And they're going to be, that was a COVID victim, and there's going to be so many of them that they won't probably get their due as individuals.
Sure.
But that's the way history works.
Yeah. We saw it, I mean, with John Prine this week, which I'm still wrecked about.
Yeah.
And it's going to be this sounds horrible, but it's, for the most part, it's going to be a lot of older people that are going to die in a bunch. There's going to be a lot of older people. Mort Drucker passed away today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to the Howard Stern show, and his producer's father-in-law died the other day of corona. And just hearing Gary talk about that process, he went in to have his battery and his pacemaker changed. And in the hospital probably got the virus. Mm-hmm. So basically went in and for 19 days suffered and died in that hospital without any family contact. Some days they'd call and a nurse might be willing to look at the chart from yesterday and tell them what was happening. But that was it. It's a just ongoing tragedy that a lot of people are going to be going through.
God, thinking about that, like, I'm 49 now, going on 50, and, obviously this is the first time really, in the last few years that death was ever present in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, it's there. It's, I'm closer to the end than I am the beginning, and but to think, like, if you're in your 70s, 80s, 90s, and it's got to be very much on your mind a lot, and probably the one thing you don't want to do is die alone. Like, that's got to be the scariest part of it. Maybe is it's like when you get to that part, man. That's it's
sad for everybody involved.
Yeah.
And Gary said that probably the best, maybe a year from now they'll have a mass. But for now, all they're going to get is driving to a cemetery and not getting out of the car and having a funeral director say a few words and driving home. That's about all the closure you get right now.
Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of closure for a lot of people. And I guess the only good news that I've seen is that we have, and this sounds horrible. I mean, this
Extraction's going to kick ass. Is that where you're headed?
Extraction's going to be amazing
on Netflix.
But we appear to be getting close to like peak deaths right now.
So, yeah.
Where fewer people are dying every day.
Isn't that a bizarre thing?
Hey,
it's like hoping horrible. For let's just get to the top of the mountain so we can peter off.
Yeah. Oh, it's there 14 people fewer died today than yesterday, right. So we're on the downhill slide. Back to the Capote in Kansas and and that one of the characters that's tied into not just your story, but Truman Capote's story is Harper Lee. I never did hear your thoughts or opinions on Go Set a Watchman.
Well, I haven't read it.
That says a lot.
I feel a little creepy. I don't know. I just feel like if she wanted me to have it, I would have had it before. I don't know. It's the same. I'm a huge Prince fan, and I haven't rushed to hear all those things. And in the end, I mean, it doesn't matter to them. They're dead, for Christ's sake. But it feels slightly ghoulish, so I haven't taken part. Do you know about, I listen to this podcast, Criminal, and there's another true crime case that Harper found herself involved in. It's an amazing story about this guy in a little town who probably murdered a lot of people, including several wives. And finally, somebody couldn't take it anymore, and they shot him in the middle of a funeral service.
Oh, wow.
They just said, to hell with you, this is for my sister, and killed him right there in front of everybody. And Harper Lee went to that trial and supposedly put months, maybe years of work into a book about those events. And again, never published. And man, I am really passionate. I would love to know what she wrote about that.
Sure.
If somebody told me it was published tomorrow, I don't know what I'd do. I'm very fascinated by it. I would probably eventually knuckle under and give it a read. I'm sure she doesn't care. Wherever she is, she could give a shit at this point.
I mean, is there any author in modern time that has written so little and had so much acclaim?
No, not that I know of.
It's amazing.
Just the idea, we talked about what In Cold Blood meant to the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wrote that book. I mean, I'd always been fascinated by Truman, and it always interested me that Truman came to my part of the world and got people like my grandpa to open up to him. And I'd seen Truman Capote on TV. I knew he was a odd little homosexual from New York, and I was like, how did that work? How did he get Kansas to talk to him?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found out that he came with Harper Lee, right as Mockingbird was being published, like they made the trip before Mockingbird was published. When you find out that the guy who wrote maybe the great American work of whatever you call it, crime fiction, nonfiction, I don't know, came to Kansas,
created the genre of true crime. Yeah.
Came to Kansas with the woman who wrote arguably the great American novel. That's ridiculous. That's when I thought I got to write something about these two.
And you did. It was awesome. And you got a pretty good young artist to.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's all right.
Whatever happened to that guy? Whatever happened?
I love describing all these people that I've worked with, and they've drawn 5 series with Mark Waid to huge acclaim. Oh, they directed the biggest movie the world's ever seen. I'm like, I'm doing okay. I got some Jack over here. I'm all right.
It's fun. I was telling Sal this story. We were at New York Comic Con. God, this had to be the first year of New York Comic Con. So that's 2008, 2009, something silly like that. And I mean, we're hustling hard. We're working with Hero Initiative, and we're bringing creators in to talk. We had Carmine Infantino that came up and talked with us, and we're getting art submissions to donate to Hero to auction off. Neil Adams gave us like 3 sketches that if I wasn't an idiot, I would have pocketed, because they went for way too little. And Chris Somney did a 11 by 17 cover quality Hulk piece.
Of course he did,
donate because it's Chris. And I remember taking it to the Hero rep, and he's looking through all of the art that we're donating for this thing, and he's like, "Who's this guy?" I'm like, "Oh, Chris Somney." And he's like, "Is he anybody? Is he a guy?" And I was just like, I think you're getting him at the right time.
Right.
I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So.
We have a question on.
Oh boy!
Yeah, we have a question here on YouTube. J Hood Creative asked, "Any thoughts on the comic adaptation of To Kill a Mockingbird? Have either of you guys? I haven't read that. I haven't seen it, but I guess
Are we saying such a thing exists?
Yeah, there is. I guess it came out in 2018. It's To Kill a Mockingbird, a graphic novel.
Really?
It's Fred Fordham. I'm not familiar with who he is, but yeah, apparently it is out there, and I haven't read it, so
I'm looking it up right now.
yeah, it's
I am ashamed to admit I don't know anything about it.
I'm trying to see who published it. Let's see.
The art is interesting.
Yeah.
I like that he didn't. It looks like he drew humans that he thought would work for the story. He didn't necessarily try to draw Gregory Packer. Yeah. Oh, and the gentleman who drew it is a dreamy son of a bitch. I have to say. Huh. I'm totally unaware of it, so I cannot offer an opinion.
Yeah,
it looks like it gets good reviews. I hope he didn't get any reviews like I got. I got one review on Capote in Kansas on Amazon, where the guy said, "It's a comic book. Don't waste your time," and he gave it 1 star.
Wow, that's great.
Apparently wasn't aware when he ordered it what he was buying, and so felt like he had to share that opinion with the world.
This is a kiddie book.
Don't waste your time.
That reminds me, God, this has been years ago, that there was someone that did a graphic novel of the Jeffrey Dahmer murders.
Yeah, My Friend Dahmer, is that what it's called?
No, this is before that.
Oh, before that.
Like,
okay.
Before that. And I was a comic book fan, and I saw this interview where they had, like, it was a total bear trap they put this poor guy into, where he was on some talk show, like local talk show, and they had one of the mothers of one of Dahmer's victims was on this. And she's just like, "You put my son in a comic book? A comic book?" And goes through the whole, like, you're making fun of
yeah.
I mean, and obviously, it's like, no, this was a serious graphic novel about Jeffrey Dahmer and these mass murders. And I'm sure this woman had never seen it or never picked it up. But the idea that it was a comic book of Jeffrey Dahmer, she's probably thinking like Felix the Cat,
Right.
And,
well, that's what I thought would happen in Garden City, Kansas, when we said, no, we're here for serious reasons. We're involved with a comic book and an opera.
Yeah. But it's going to be tastefully done.
I'm trying to think if I've read. I did read that My Friend Dahmer, which was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I have to confess, the art just did not appeal to me, so I did not read it.
It's I mean, if you're interested in just a different perspective, I mean, it's literally about a guy that grew up with him, and so
right,
while he gets into some of the weirdness that he was about, it's I mean, it's just different because it's a kid's perspective, sort of this guy that I knew when I was a kid, and he was weird, but
right,
not a whole lot more than that. But
they turned it into, it was a movie.
Yeah,
I watched part of the movie and I got very disturbed, and I quit watching.
Yeah,
there was a scene where the guy who plays Dahmer goes to see a doctor who was played by somebody famous who I can't recall. Anyway, during part of the exam, Dahmer obviously gets an erection, and the doctor gets uncomfortable, and and I was like, yeah, life is hard enough. I don't need this.
I don't have enough whiskey. I don't. On the shelf.
And somebody, there's only when Trump is president, there's so much horrible bandwidth you can bear to lose before you're like, I still gotta function as a human.
Yeah,
we watch a lot of the Great British Baking Show here.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I was. I have to admit that going back to that documentary, that Don't Fuck with Cats, I was watching the first episode of it, and it was probably midnight. My whole family's asleep. I'm alone in the basement watching it. There's a thunderstorm, and about 40 minutes into it, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to turn this off and watch something funny before I go to bed because I'm not going to be able to sleep. And
I think I mentioned yesterday I had kind of a rough day, and so we were sitting around at night. I said, Cynthia, can you pick between Mary Tyler Moore, Dick Van Dyke, and Bob Newhart?
Bob Newhart.
She chose Bob Newhart. Yeah, we watched one of those, so that was a good way to end the day. Yeah,
that's so funny.
Nice choice.
I just started watching Bob Newhart again, like the Bob Newhart show, and it's like, man, it's still funny. He's
so good.
Yeah.
You know,
Bob
the
Newhart
miracle of that show,
Newhart?
I love about Bob that when Bob tries to be funny on that show, it's always painfully not funny.
Yeah.
It's always his deadpan moments that are hilarious.
Yeah. No, it was the original was the Bob Newhart show, right? And then it was
Newhart show.
The one where he's a psychiatrist. That's the one you want.
Great stuff.
Which I love the series finale of Newhart.
Right.
Yeah, where it was all a dream.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
And spoilers.
20 years ago, this thing happened. Hold on, people.
It's one of the best series finales. It's like right there with MASH, right?
And they got Suzanne to do it and everything, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He's like, I just had the weirdest dream.
Woke up in bed. Yeah.
You know, it's yeah. And it's like, go back to sleep.
Well, gentlemen, I hate to I don't want to end your show, but I'm out of booze, and I told the wife I'd be free around now to watch something fun.
Yeah, go watch some Newhart, man.
You guys are fun. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we miss you, bud.
So I finished my Manhattan. I finished my Screwball, and then I filled this up with some Sailor Jerry, and now I'm dry.
but well inebriated. You're well lubricated, as we say.
Particularly, see, I'm still okay.
Nice.
I say it just a little bit slower. You could hear that it's a little, yeah.
Well, I want you to know how golden we think and know you are, and it was when we got back together to do this, you were one of the first people we wanted to touch base with. And,
oh, that's kind. I love you guys, and to be honest, I've had a few requests, and I've just been kind of like, eh. But any chance to hang out with you guys is always pleasant. So yeah, it's been a good time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, take care, man. Be safe,
and always.
And take care, everybody, and hopefully you and yours get through this unscathed as much as possible.
Yeah. You too. You guys be careful up there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, love you, brother. You be good. And once again, Extraction hits Netflix on what's the date?
April 24th.
My wife's
and
birthday.
If you're interested in all things Andy Parks and Extraction, I'm on Twitter and Facebook. No, don't Facebook friend me. I don't want that. I'm on Twitter. And because my name is spelled funny, it's easy to find my Patreon account, which is free all this month, and then I'll turn it into a pay thing in May. It's just Andy with an E Parks, so you can find me easily.
Yep, ANDE Parks. So I'll be checking out the Patreon. I got
Great.
It's like, art, writing, both. We'll see.
Both for $10 a month. What a fucking deal.
I know. It's like a Hulu membership.
Yeah, still more than Disney Plus. I know. I can't beat those bastards.
Will you do sketches of Baby Yoda?
I will. Yeah, I could see that happening. I just did a Yoda, but I need to do that, baby. Yeah.
So you're saying
that
your
sounded wrong.
Patreon? So your Patreon is it's just as good as Disney Plus then?
Yeah. Okay. After your third cocktail, you won't know the difference.
All right, bud. You have a good one. Love to the family and stay safe out there, okay?
All right. Take care, brothers.
Have a good one,
All
Andy.
right.
Thanks.
Bye, bud. All right.
All right.
Uh,
Well,
yeah, so we can wrap up here. Love Andy, one of our absolute favorite people in the world. He was just a walk down memory lane. He was the first comic creator that reached out to us. He actually left an iTunes review way back in the day whenever we first started the show. Yeah.
Gosh, that's funny.
So Sal and I used to work in an office, same office together that was separated by a doorway. And I remember you coming in and saying, dude, Ande Parks just left us an iTunes review.
Well, it was a weird thing, like when we first started, the idea that we were talking about comics and then all these guys that made comics were listening to us talk about comics, which was really weird and hard to get over initially. I remember us having conversations of like, well, we just have to be ourselves and just say what we're going to say and not think about it, because there were, all of a sudden there were a lot of guys because those guys would be at their drawing tables and need something to listen to. And so a comic book podcast seemed to be the perfect thing to listen to. And luckily hopefully didn't piss off too many people. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure we did along the way, but that's all part of it. And, but the nice thing, and at the time that community, we were able to go to conventions and hang out and talk with a lot of these folks. And, I was talking out of my ass. I still do so to this day. But the amount that I learned about comics and the comics industry in that 3 or 4 years was pretty amazing and eye opening. It was because of guys like Ande Parks. It's like, yeah, well, you said this, and it's like, here's kind of the real deal about that, or this is the way that works. And so it was a real education process for us. It's not a lot of people remember podcasts back in 2005, 2006, but we were all just fucking making it up as we went.
Yeah, well, but we said that as much. I mean, I made a point of always saying, listen, for sure. We're not experts, we're not critics, we're just fans talking what we think, and yeah, I think people always appreciate it. Funny enough, like the idea that of creators listening to our show, Tony Moore was listening to this broadcast of us and Andy. He tuned in on Facebook to listen.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is fun. I'm glad we, getting to talk to these guys again is always a blast and such a good time. And, for whatever reason, it's just been such a big part of our lives. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And, oh, by the way, Tom will be back. Tom is still part of the show. He's just, he has young children.
He does.
He's still, and it's the isolation quarantine has not been kind to him. So Tom will be back when he's able to kind of show up and be able to focus on stuff. So he's still a part of the show.
Before we cut out, we did have a very nice listener email. If you'd like me to read that before we go. All right, let me pull that up here real quick. And as always, I wanted to let people know you can contact us at info@aroundcomics.com. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can see all those on the video feed. I put them all on the feed now, so you can see the links to all those. But you can go to our website, aroundcomics.com, and all the links to all of our various social media places are there. You can watch, if you're listening to this podcast, we are doing this live video now, live streaming all these podcasts. And they're not the greatest video. I'm still working out the kinks trying to get this to work worth a damn. But if you want to watch us do these, you can do that on our YouTube channel. So if you're
Faces for Radio.
Yes, if you are watching this and you want to listen to us, obviously we will release it as a podcast as well, audio only podcast, and you can listen to that on iTunes and SoundCloud and all the places podcasts are. So, all right, to the email. Let's see here. No, that's not it. Wait a minute. I grabbed the wrong email. Where is it? Oh, here we go. This is from Greg. And Greg said, "Keep doing stuff, please." That was the title of the email. I said, "No, seriously."
Well,
No.
Greg, I have good news for you.
He goes on to say, "No, seriously, I love you guys. I'm so fucking happy you are kind of, sort of, I'll take what I can get back. I can hardly stand it. I'm a fellow sort of old guy that just likes reading comics. Anyway, I love you, love the show, wish I could figure out who the hell that is on your theme music because it's an awesome tune. This is not important, but..." Yeah, we can get into that, but... "This is not important, but one of my most vivid memories from when I was a kid is I remember having a horrible fever of over a week, and I was eventually hospitalized for some flavor of meningitis. About the only thing I recall from the time was the comics I was reading. This would have been late 70s, early 80s maybe. I read Spider-Man that had some Green Goblin in there. I don't recall the details, but I also recall reading the Superman where he battled a prehistoric Moa. As I stated previously, it was not important, but I feel the need to be on topic. I really, really, really hope you guys keep doing this, so don't quit again. I'm completely well-adjusted, and I have a job and everything, but I just wanted to pass along that not much makes me happier than seeing there's a new episode. I could listen to you guys talk for hours, and it just lets me tune out all the other political crap and human tragedy, and I relax for a bit. I appreciate you. Keep up the good work. You guys are my favorite jackasses on the internet. Keep doing what you do, and get Tom a fucking babysitter already."
I agree with all of that, and also with Tom's greatest fear that someone's going to kidnap us and put us in a basement and just make us talk.
It does seem that way a little bit. They don't have to, though. We're back. We're back, and we're talking. And I'm sure we'll get Tom.
You don't have to kidnap us.
But that was a very nice. I mean, it's you know, I mean, we talked about this sort of, you know, doing this again. So hopefully we can maybe give people a little bit of respite from the tragedy and all the bad news and all the shitty stuff that's happening around the world. You know, if we can, you know, give people a break for a couple of hours, that's awesome, and hopefully entertain. And that's all we've ever tried to do. You know, like we've never, there was never anything more to doing this than, you know, talking, and hopefully people dug it. And that was, you know,
if there's 10 people out there that this makes their week of isolation that much easier to deal with, that's more than I could ask for. And that's, and honest to God, that's why we're doing it, for ourselves. And I know that Tony and Andy needed it. Tony, we talked to Tony Moore earlier this week, and I saw him repost the episode, and he's like, yeah, I you know, figured I'd be on for an hour, and, you know, like 73 hours later, we're still talking. So I guess there was something therapeutic about it. So that's the whole point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we've always done this just because we like to talk to each other, and, you know, if other people like to listen, great. We'll there's no reason not to do it. We got nothing else to goddamn do. We can't go anywhere.
Yep. Yeah. Well, honestly, I spent like an hour today trying to figure out if I should like multi-class my D&D character or, you know, not.
I spent hours.
It's where we are.
Trying to figure out this video and audio, and I still can't quite get it right. I don't know, but
You'll get there.
All right, man. Is that where we're at?
I think that's it. When do you want to talk again? Because I actually have some comics to talk about.
I don't know. Soon. We can talk soon.
It's Thursday.
We'll figure that out off there.
For Sunday.
We'll figure it out later. Let's do the outro.
Okay. Well, okay. I mean, we'll get together later, and in the meantime,
in between time, we'll be everywhere in and around comics. We can't get that right either.
Comics.